Welcome back to episode 2. Let's take a deep breath in together. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Dropping down into your belly, softening through your jaw, and just letting yourself arrive here with me today. So in episode 1, we answered the question that haunts every woman that's done the healing, that lives in this in-between place. Why hasn't my healing changed my life? We named the ache, we named the gap between your inner world and your external reality. We named that, or we explained that healing gives you capacity, but your identity is what creates your lived reality. And today in this episode, we're going to get really honest and very clear about what identity is. Specifically, what is your survival identity? And how do you know when it's the one running your life? Because once you can see her, once you can identify your survival identity, you can stop blaming yourself. And then you can start to choose differently. So what is a survival identity? Your survival identity is the version of you that learned, this is how I stay safe. This is how I am loved. And this is how I belong. She learned that this is how I cause the least harm. And this is how I am allowed to exist. Your survival identity isn't mythical. It's not a vibe. It's deeply practical. And it's the psychological and behavioral blueprint your nervous system built in response to your childhood environment, in response to your family dynamics, your culture, religion, and schooling. The moments where things hurt you and you had to make sense of it in real time. Your survival identity is the unspoken rules you absorb. The good girls do this, good girls don't do that. And your survival identity is the one who reads the room before she reads herself. She decides which parts of you were allowed and hid the ones that were too much, too loud, too needy, too sensitive. Your survival identity is brilliant. She is loyal and she is ancient. But unfortunately, she is still running patterns that have long since expired. And healing helps you meet the pain that shaped her. But healing does not automatically retire her from her job. So I want you to imagine your younger self, long before she had language for any of this, long before she started healing. And something happens. A parent withdraws, they snap or they explode. You're shamed for needing something, and you're praised for being easy, helpful, clever, or quiet. And you watch how love moves through your house. Who gets love, who doesn't get love. And your nervous system, in its wisdom, learns. If I behave like this, it's safer. If I keep the peace, we're safer. If I perform, I belong. If I need less, I'm loved more. If I never rock the boat, I won't be abandoned. And if I always stay helpful, they'll need me. So you take on these roles, performing in certain ways, whether that's being a good girl or a helper or the overachiever, the emotional carer, or the one that never needs anything. And the thing is, over time, these roles don't feel like roles anymore. They become who you are. They feel like this is just who I am. And this is a survival identity. And the thing is, you think it's your personality. You don't need to memorize these labels. You just need to understand that these survival identities and patterns are baked into you long before you started healing. And so when you do start healing and you start feeling and processing and releasing the wounds, you're doing something incredibly powerful. But unless you update the identity, that was formed around those wounds. Your survival self will keep running the show. These are the moments that your survival identity is likely the one at the wheel. So you finally sit down at your laptop to work on something that really matters to you. And suddenly, you have to clean the cutlery drawer, or answer all those old emails, or reorganize the apps on your phone. You get close to what you say you want: love, visibility, money, success, and then your system quietly freaks out. You pick a fight, you ghost the opportunity, you forget the deadline, or you get sick the week of the launch. Get an opportunity to become a bigger version of yourself. A new role, a brave conversation, a new boundary. And your first reflex is, who am I to do this? What if they're upset? What if I do it wrong? What if I fail? Or I'll do it when I feel ready. You know there's a relationship, a job, a pattern, a dynamic that is really just done, and you still stay. Not because you don't know what you want, but because leaving feels like a step too far, like a stepping off a cliff. And you tell yourself you're blocked or confused, but underneath it all, you really know what you want. You're just terrified. Terrified of the chain of reactions that would come after you making that decision. And it's not because you're weak. And it's not because you're unhealed. Your survival identity is saying, this new life that you're calling in, this is an unknown. An unknown feels unsafe. So can we get back to what we already know is safe? And want to walk you through a few so you might recognize yourself. Notice which ones land in your body and how it makes you feel. So we have the good girl. She says yes when she means no. She hates disappointing people more than she hates betraying herself. Apologizes for taking up space, having needs, or changing her mind. Then we have the overachiever. She believes her worth is measured in productivity, fills her calendar to avoid the emptiness underneath, and earns rest only when she's on the brink of collapse. The perfectionist would rather not start anything than risk doing it imperfectly. She edits herself in real time and waits until she's fully ready until she can move. The people pleaser. She scans every room for other people's emotional states, softens herself or softens her truth to keep the peace, feels responsible for everybody else's comfort. The invisible one, she makes herself small so that others can feel big. Underestimates or understates her needs, her desires, and her gifts, and feels safer being overlooked than being seen. The victim. She feels like life is always happening to her instead of for her. She waits to be chosen, rescued, or discovered, and silently believes her life is harder than anybody else's. And then we have the saboteur. Panics when things actually start working out, and accidentally creates chaos when she feels too close to her desires. Suddenly starts scrolling or overreacting or picking fights or blowing money right when things start going well or right when life starts expanding. And the hyper-independent one doesn't trust anyone to be there for her, would rather burn out than ask for help. Confuses self-protection with self-respect. And so you may recognize yourself in some of these roles, maybe all of them. And you might feel like one hits your chest or hits you in the stomach or in the throat. And you may even begin to notice that some of them take turns. So depending on the context or the situation, you may feel like you're the good girl with family, the overachiever in a work situation. You're a victim with money, and you sabotage your own dating. None of this means that you're broken. They're just your survival identities that learned this is what keeps us the safest. To identify the survival identities at work, you may feel this in your body. So if your body feels tight, braced, shallow, your chest or throat feels constricted, especially when you're about to speak your truth, or your mind suddenly gets very noisy. What if they're upset? What if I'm too much? They're all looking at me. I'll ruin everything. It's not that bad, don't make a fuss. Or you instantly loop to the most catastrophized situation. If I say this, they'll leave, or I may lose my job, or they think I'm crazy. Or another really big one is you reach for things that numb you. So they distract you or they numb you, especially when things are about to start going well or when something really matters to you. You feel like a little girl in adult situations, powerless, small. You don't get to say what you want. And the thing is in these moments, it's not that you've lost your healing. It's that the survival identity has stepped between you, your healed self, and said, let me handle this the old way. Because I know the old way kept us alive. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. I like examples. Healing is like finally filling your wardrobe with clothes that feel like the real you. You've gone out and you've done a big haul, but your survival identity, she keeps reaching for the old outfit. The one that's too tight or too small or like the wrong color. But because it feels familiar, you wake up each and every day and put on the old outfit. Think the same things, do the same actions, and you become the good girl again. The overachiever, the victim, the fixer, the invisible one. And you walk into your life dressed as the woman you used to be, even though your wardrobe is filled with clothes that match the woman you are now. And this is the ache. This is the gap. And this is why it's so goddamn painful. It's because you know who you could be and you watch yourself complete patterns and do the same things in real time. And it's not because you didn't do the healing and not because you're unhealed, but it's because your behavior, your choices, and your self-concepts haven't yet caught up to your internal truth. So I want you to hear this. I want you to really let this sink in. You are not lazy. You are not sabotaging yourself on purpose. And you're not unhealed. You are a woman whose healing has outgrown her survival identity. Your inner world has changed. Your capacity has expanded. Your truth about who you are is clearer than it's ever been before. But your behaviors are still on autopilot. Your survival identity is still making most of your day-to-day decisions. And until that shifts, your life will keep reflecting who you used to be. The good girl, or the overachiever, the invisible one, the victim, the saboteur. Even though healing has already revealed a deeper truth about who you are. And this is not a moral failing. This is mechanical. So before we move into the next episode, I would like you to sit with a few questions. You don't have to answer them perfectly. You just have to notice what your body says when you hear them. So question 1, when something good starts to happen, like love or money or opportunities, do you tend to lean into the situation? Or do you suddenly find yourself finding reasons to delay, distract, or derail? Question 2. When someone is disappointed, upset, or distant, do you automatically assume it's your fault and then rush to fix it, explain it, or make yourself smaller? Question 3. When you think about actually changing something, like leaving, asking for a raise, launching something, or saying no, do you feel more like a grounded adult, or are you scared? like a scared little girl who's about to get in trouble. Question 4, when you look at your life, the day-to-day life, does it feel like it was designed by the woman you are now or the little girl who was just trying to survive? You don't need to do anything with these questions or those answers. Right now, we're just seeing clearly. Because once you can start to see your survival identity in real time, you can stop hating her. And you can start working with your nervous system to create something new. So now you understand why healing didn't automatically change your life. Episode 1. What actually has been running your life instead? Your survival identity. And in episode 3, rebuild. We're going to talk about the most important part and the part where most women don't get support in. What does it actually look like to rebuild your life from the identity of your healed self in relationships, work, family, money, and then in your daily behavior? We'll walk through how to make different choices without burning your whole life down overnight. What it looks like in real, ordinary moments to act as your healed self and not as your survival self. And we will discuss why this rebuild phase feels like the hardest part and why you need support. This is where identity stops being a concept and starts becoming the way you live. And I'll meet you in episode 3.